afternoon. Thank you all for being here today as we come together to honor and remember the life of a remarkable man, my uncle, Prentice Carroll Leonard, affectionately known as P from Tennessee. Your presence means so much to our family, whether you traveled from near or far. We are deeply grateful that you've come to pay your respects and celebrate the life of someone who touched all of us in unique and memorable ways. Uncle Prentice was a man of warmth, passion, and vision. His laughter and his unwavering presence left a deep imprint on all of who crossed paths with him. And if you knew him, you most certainly witnessed the prophetic guidance. He offered a calming approach that resonated with even the wisest among us when he would say, "Everything is everything." One of my most memorable times with Uncle P was when he, my mother, Creasa, and I took a road trip to Miami after attending a family reunion we went to in Orlando. We did the usual tourist attractions. We went to Little Haiti. We had coffee in Little Havana. We didn't get any cigars, but we really enjoyed ourselves. And the most meaningful memory for me was spending time with my elders and just listening to them. They would talk for hours, especially in the car as we're driving, just hours of conversation, and that's something I'll always treasure. Today, we don't just mourn his passing. We celebrate and give thanks for the gift of his life and the love that he shared so generously. As we move through the service, may we find comfort in our shared memories, in the support of one another, and in the knowledge that Uncle Prentice's spirit lives on in each one of us. Your presence is a beautiful tribute to a life well lived. A few reflections have been prepared today, words from people who knew him well and loved him deeply. Their voices will help us honor and remember Uncle P. I will introduce them now, and they will speak in the following order. For some of you, I'd like to introduce V.H. Sonny Dixon, Jr. But for most of us, we know Sonny from being actively involved in the Nashville community. Then, Mitch Snow, Prentice's nephew and traveling partner, will share a few words and memories. Following him, we'll hear from someone who's been Prentice's friend since high school. And he's also the owner of Lewis and Wright Funeral Home, Mr. Richard Lewis. After Mr. Lewis will be attorney Monty Watkins, former judge of criminal court and Prentice's friend and supervisor. Dr. Megan Suggs and Miss Jewel Walker will bring us a special tribute to a friend. Dr. Megan Suggs is assistant principal at Hull Jackson Montessori School, where Jewel Walker is also there as an associate teacher. Each developed a great relationship with Prentice during his most recent job. He was there as a crossing guard for the school. And finally, Reverend Dr. Fred A. Allen, retired United Methodist minister and childhood friend, will deliver the eulogy. Thank you.
It is indeed an honor for me to have an opportunity to be able to share some words, and in particular honor to be the first one up. So by the time we get to the end, you've forgotten all the things that I said, and so I'll just be able to lump in with all of the great words that are being shared this day. When I was talking and Creasa extended the invitation. Is it an invitation that I had received many times before? Because whenever I would see Prentice would say, well, now, you know, and I would tell him, I said, well, you know, I don't know about that. You might be the one doing mine before I have an opportunity to do yours. But I want to share with you what is my earliest remembrance of Prentice and what he meant to me. It must have been around 13 or 14. And we were having a picnic out at the farm. And I remember there were two older folk that came to the picnic in a Ford Mustang. And it was Prentice and Fred Allen. Now, when you're 13, 14, you begin to try to shape who it is that you want to be and the people in your lives that will end up being role models. I guess today they might call them influences. But I was just watching them, and I was particularly drawn to Prentice, that while he was a cousin, he was also one who just kind of worked the crowd in a different way than normally you saw people. Most people who work the crowd were trying to bring attention to themselves, and you would recognize them by the things they did, and they would make sure that they let you knew who they were and what they were involved. But Prentice was one who seemed to be more concerned about the people he engaged rather than having the people who engaged him. It didn't matter whether they were young or old or family or stranger. Prentice knew something about them, and Prentice offered something. I just liked the way Prentice worked a crowd, because he worked it where you knew that he cared as much about you as it was the next person. I always kind of left Prentice, and it was always a good when I left him, because I always felt like I was the favorite cousin, because he just had a way of making you feel. Whenever I would see him out in things that he was doing and the way that he engaged folk, he did not take the spotlight, but put the spotlight on the others, and you could always sense that people felt better because they had been in his presence. I always said that as much, if all of the things that I can do, Duran was talking about being involved in the community. I wanted to be involved in the community the way Prentice was involved in the community, of being able to have people say, he made a difference in my life because I knew somebody cared about me. And so I tried to model myself after Cousin Prentice in that way. I want to share these two things, and I'm sure they will be reflected upon a little later, but for me, kind of represented what Prentice was all about. When I was talking to Creasa, I was apologizing because Creasa had called me, and I had not answered the phone, had not responded to it. And I told her, I said, the reason was because that day I had gotten several calls that had come from out of the Atlanta area. And I just thought her call was another one trying to see if I had gotten my $150 on my Medicaid card or not. And I just didn't want to be bothered with that again. But finally I looked and saw the voicemail and saw that it was her. So I was trying to explain to her why I didn't answer the telephone. And as I was explaining that to her, she started laughing. And when she laughed, she says, I have to tell you, I've got Prentice's phone. And I can't use this phone because it has facial recognition. But I'm answering the phone so that when Prentice's friends call, I can tell them what happened. And And she said, and it was interesting, the phone rang while she was talking to Richard. And while she was talking to Richard, she answered, and the person who was on the other end was trying to sell Prentice some burial insurance. And Richard chimed in, "You too late." But I shared that because it let us know that Prentice was always prepared. And Prentice's setting it up and going through all of the outline wasn't about him, it was about you all. Because he didn't want you all to have to worry about what it was, and if things didn't go right, you wasn't blaming Creaser, wasn't blaming Ellen. It was he had taken the responsibility, that he was always prepared. And then the last one, and we will hear from them later, is that his last job was that of being a crossing guard. A crossing guard at a school for parents and for teachers that are often overlooked and neglected in our community. Of servicing and greeting them, where many would often turn their backs on that population, he was one who greeted them in such a way that it gave them both the dignity that they deserved. Jules said that the principal, when he got the news that he would not be back this year, was disappointed because of what he meant to the community. And in a certain way, all of us share that same sentiment. We're disappointed. We won't be able to turn to parents anymore. We won't be able to look forward to how he made us feel better. But we can hold on to the memory that all of our lives were made better because we encountered Prentice in it. Whether it was family, friend, co-worker, or stranger. When we encountered Prentice, we knew that we encountered someone that cared about us. I thank God for his love and that he made me a better person because I tried to be like my cousin who showed up in that Ford Mustang.
Say a few things piggyback behind what my cousin Sonny said. I have it in my head what I wanted to say. But it's a couple of words I want y'all to remember. One of them is called Buck, and one of them is called the Big Boys. Being Prentice's nephew, Prentice took me under his wings. Prentice was a ball of fun. I like to think of Prentice as Santa Claus without the Christmas because he was always happy, compassionate, pleasant. He was all about having some fun. But Prentice knew how to take care of his business. If it was something serious and he needed to do, he knew how to handle that, and he would separate that. But once his business was taken care of, he was about having fun. If you knew him, if you ever been out with him, you would know you were going to have a nice time, a real good time. One of the things I want y'all to realize is that Prentice loved his family. He loved his sister, Ellen. He loved his sister, Creasa. He loved them deeper than deep. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was over to his house. We were sitting in the living room. He was upset with one of them. I'm not gonna say who, but he was upset with one of them. And he was just talking. He was just talking about. And I called myself gonna butt in, and I said, yeah, you right. You know what? And he said, hold on, Buck. I said, what? He said, you can't talk about my sister. I said, what? I said, she my auntie. He said, no, but she's my sister, and you can't talk about her. I said, I looked at him, and I saw how his eyes was buck and how serious he was, because I knew his look. And I said, okay, Buck, I'll leave that alone. I know I ain't gonna win this one. So we let that go and start talking about something else completely. There's another thing I want you to know about Prentice. Prentice could be upset with you today, and I promise you, tomorrow, he won't even know nothing about it. It's not that he had amnesia. It was just his character. He didn't hold no type of grudge or nothing of that sense. That was a trait that I like to have had like him, because I would carry mine a little bit, but he would just forget it. He'll go ahead and go through whatever he had to go through with you right then, and after that, it's over with. I mean, he's back loving you like he loved you before. That was his nature. That was Prentice's nature. My cousin Sonny mentioned his personality. It's one thing about Prentice. He could walk into a room. He might know some of the people there. He might not know everybody there. But I guarantee you, before you leave or before he leaves, you're going to know Mr. P from Tennessee. He's going to introduce himself. He's going to ingrace himself. And I guarantee you this, too. Before you leave, he would have brought a smile to your face, because that's who he was all about. He was about the good things, the happiness. He wasn't about any kind of negativity or anything on the dark side. If that was in the atmosphere, Prentice would leave. He'll walk away and go ahead and go home. He wouldn't deal with none of that. He didn't tolerate that. Prentice was also a sports fan. He loved the Tennessee Titans, and he loved Tennessee State. They could lose. They could have a losing season, and Prentice would act like he's the coach. He'll be sitting there talking about they should have did this and they should have did that, but he loved them still. Those are his two teams. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all something that y'all didn't know about Prentice. Prentice was a teacher. I'm not talking about a teacher in the school system. I'm talking about a teacher at home. I was just a little bitty boy. I could barely read. Only thing I could do was just look and listen. I had an older brother. He could read. Prentice groomed us. He told us as little boys. Prentice used to come in from work. He'd take his cap off, lay it on the buffet. He'd take his wallet, his change, loose change in his pockets, his keys, put them in his hat, and back then he loved to smoke the red and white pack Marlboros, that soft pack. He would put that soft pack of cigarettes in there, and if he didn't have the Marlboros, he used to call what we call pimp cigarettes. That was the Salems. He'd have him a pack of Salems. He'd have either one, but he'll put it in that hat. He'd go in the room. He'll speak to his mama. He'd go on upstairs. Me and my brother, we was crazy about Prince when he came home because he knew he was going to tell us something. So we would go up and meet him, and if he was going to go out that night, what he would do is go ahead and take his bath and everything. He would come in there. He had taught my brother how to shine his shoes, and he would school my brother. And I'd be in the corner listening. And what Prentice would say is, he said, Buck, shine my shoes for me while I iron my clothes. He said, always iron your clothes. Always have them good and neat. And always have your shoes shine. That's what the girls like. He says, shine your shoes, iron your clothes, always cut your hair, have it neat, clean your fingernails. Prince was teaching us how to groom ourselves as little bitty kids, okay? Then he introduced us, he also introduced us to Jimmy Holt, a barber. He said, this is where you can go and get your haircuts at. And we used to go there. I saw Jimmy here today. We used to go there and get our haircuts all the time when Prentice went around or whatever as we grew up. But when he was in the house getting ready to go on his date, Prentice forgive me for this, but I'm going to give them this one secret you had. What Prince did was he would tell us, always put your some cologne on. Put your cologne on this side and put your cologne on this side. He said, then spray the back of your hand on each side. He said, rub them together. He said, when you're with a girl, he said, what you do is, he said, girls don't like for you to take your fingers and put them on your face. And they don't like for you to just really play in their hair. He said, so what you do is you take that, if you're right-handed, you take that right hand and go across her face and just pat her hair on the side and tell her how beautiful it is. If you're left-handed, you go to the left. Because my brother was left-handed. He said, you go to the left side. He said, go just a little bit before her face and just pat it on the left side. He said, what you've done is, he said, you've complimented, and tell her how beautiful it is, her hair is. He said, what you've done is, you've arose her and let her know that she's beautiful, and she gets excited with that. But when you bring your hand back, he said, make sure you bring it back across her face, because what she's going to do is going to swift that cologne on your finger, and that's going to really make her feel good. You know, he said, so then you just might have the opportunity to ask her to come here and bring in for a hug. And when she come in for the hug, she got the shoulders. You're gonna smell that cologne. You're gonna smell that cologne. He said, and then you better have some kind of conversation, because you just might be in there. And that was something he taught us, you know, as little kids. And later on, Prentice had left. Prentice had left town. He went to New York. He lived in New York. He lived in Chicago. He lived in Arizona. He lived out in L.A. He moved around. But during the time he was gone, I had grown up. And when he decided to come back the first time, I had moved. And sometimes I would come back and visit. But every time I came back and visit, he was still a teacher. I come back, he'd take me up on his wings. He said, come run with me. He would take me around. He introduced me to his friends. He introduced me to Judge Monty. And we just always had a ball all the time. So one day he called me. He said, Buck, he said, I'm finna go to the Super Bowl. He said, if you want to go, me and Monty go in the Super Bowl, so you can come and go with me. I said, yeah, pencil me in. So I went to the Super Bowl with him. We had a ball. And as they say, what stays in Vegas, what goes on in Vegas, stay in Vegas. What goes on in the Super Bowl, stay in the Super Bowl. We had a ball, okay? So we did that, and every year after that, Prentice was always call me and tell me, hey, Buck, going to the Super Bowl. And I said, pencil me in. And Monty and him and Mike, we'd meet at the Super Bowl, and we just go ahead, like I said, we had a ball. We did that quite a bit. And Prentice had done that way before I had started. So he always loved the Super Bowl. That was his yearly thing that he did. Now, one time he called me and told me, he said, Buck, I'm down here in Orlando, and they're having the Pro Bowl down here. We never went to the Pro Bowl. He said, you want to go? I said, yeah. So we decided to go to the Pro Bowl. I went down there. We went to the Pro Bowl. We sitting in the bleachers having a nice time. And then across the big screen came breaking news, and that's when Kobe Bryant and his daughter was in a plane crash. We were sitting in the Pro Bowl when that happened, and we enjoyed the Pro Bowl. So Prentice always looked after me. He told me always, I used to wear suits, and he told me, don't always wear a suit, Buck. He said, sometimes, he said, get you 2 or 3 sports jackets in your closet. He said, because you can use a sports jacket and leave the collar open, and you still look nice. Or you could wear a tie with that. So always keep your sports jacket in there. Prince was always teaching me, always teaching me. And the last thing I'm going to tell you is this. It wasn't too long ago, Prentice told me, he said, Buck, he said, let me tell you something. I said, what's that, Buck? He said, let the negativity go. He said, let the negativity go. He said, don't let nobody bring negativity in your life. Live your life the way you want to live it. He said, that's what the big boys do. And that's where the word big boy came from. Him telling me, let the negativity go and live your life like the big boys. Do it the way you want to do it, not how somebody else want to do it. And I appreciated that, because he was still teaching me. He was a teacher, and I'll always say and look at him as a teacher. He was my best friend. I don't have nobody else that was closer to me than him. And I just want to say to him, I salute you. I salute you, Buck. You did it the way the big boys did it, your way. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to keep you as long as Sonny or Buck. Son is a preacher and he's used to it. Buck, I don't know what you do, but you did good. You know, Sonny and Buck both talked about what Prentice did in his life and the way he did it. I was talking with Creaser when we were making the arrangements. I'm supposed to be retired 3 days a week, 3 hours a day. Somehow another Creaser came in during my off time, and we had an awful lot to say. And in talking with Creaser, I told her something, and she said, now that is really something that you need to tell the folk, because you need to speak at Prentice's funeral. And I said, oh, Lord. Prentice and I do go back a long ways. For those of you all that are as old as I am or as young as I am, you would know that I didn't graduate from Pearl, but my pictures on Pearl High's reunion, that picture that everybody sees when they go through the halls. At Father Ryan in 1958 to 62, it was an all-boys school, no girls. So we had to go to Pearl to see the girls. And that's where I met Prentice. And Lord, it's been that way ever since I met him. Henry Irvin keeps up with the people who are graduates of Pearl on a email that he sends out to a whole lot of people. He sent one to my closest friend's former husband, Donna Williams. And she saw it, and she called me. And she said, you didn't call me and tell me about Prentice. I said, no, and I apologize. I said, but nothing. Whatever you do, here's some pictures for you. She sent me pictures of Prentice and her back in the day. They were not lovers, they were just good friends. Donna loved Mr. Gunner, the band director. She hung around Prentice because that was her way of getting to Mr. Gunner. But again, I was talking with Creaser and Buck. I guess I'm going to have to apologize when I get to heaven with Prentice, because you said something that I'm getting ready to divulge, and I'm not supposed to divulge it, I guess. You say what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, that's a tale, because I was in Vegas. And I was walking down the street, and I looked coming up the street, and we both looked at each other. I said, Prentice? He said, Richard. I said, yeah. Man, what a reunion that was. So, Prentice, when I get to heaven, I'll owe you an apology for telling this story. The last thing, and I'll take my seat. You talked about Prentice taking care of business. Prentice took care of business almost 3 years ago. He came to the funeral home. No, he called me. He said, I need to see you. I said, when you want to see me? We set up a time. He came. He told me what he wanted to do. I said, you're not sick, are you? No. So we went to our selection room. Prentice saw that. That was what he wanted, exactly what you see here right now. He said, now how much you going to charge me? I said, oh, it's not going to be that much. He said, well, write it out. I wrote it out. He said, I'm going to carry on, think about it. He did. He called me back, said, I need to see you. I said, okay, come on. So we sat down. We made a deal. We set the price. He said, I don't want anybody to have to worry about me when I'm gone. I said, okay, I understand, but I want you to stay vertical like me, and we won't have to worry about that. Well, when Teresa called me the other day, and I saw that, kind of blew my mind. I said, he told me he was not sick. So I said, Teresa, I hate to ask you this, but what in the world happened? She told me back in January, I think she said, and it is August, and he's gone. So I think all of us need to follow Prentice's footsteps. You need to plan before you go. You can go see Monty, tell Monty that you want a will prepared before you go, so the rest of the people won't have anything to do when you're gone. I told Ricky, my son, I said, my folders in the back, it's got everything that I want for you all to do. And I don't plan for you to do anything but what I wrote and what I put in there and what I stapled up. So be ready. I think that's the way it's supposed to go. Be ye also ready, for you know not the day nor the hour when the good Lord's going to visit you. God bless you.
You know, it's kind of strange. Everybody said exactly what I was going to say. But let me say this. Let me say this. Prentice died a rich man, and I'll explain that in a second. Last Tuesday, I was thinking about Prentice, as I often did, and I said, let me call him and check on him, because all this year he had been, you know, in ill health. And I called him. He was in the hospital. He explained what was going on. We chatted for a few minutes. Then I said, Prentice, I'm going to call you in 2 days. Well, the next morning I got the text from Ellen about his passing, and it broke my heart. Prentice and I met over 35 years ago at a place that some of you may know about. It's called Park Avenue. And we became instant friends. And as has been mentioned, we traveled together, we went to football games, did all of that kind of stuff. But let me say 3 things about Prentice. First of all, as mentioned before, Prentice loved his family. Every time he and I got together, he would talk about at least one family member, whether it was one of his sisters, his brother who passed away, his niece, his nephews, his cousins. He would always mention at least one, and he always said something good about him. So he loved his family. Prentice also didn't have an enemy in the world. He knew how to make friends. When we went somewhere, anybody that was close to Prentice, he would say, how you doing? My name is Prentice. How are you doing? And, you know, he would just start a conversation with anybody, wherever we went. Didn't matter who it was, and he loved to tell women how pretty they were. No matter how they looked, he loved to tell them how pretty they were. So he knew how to make friends. He was a master at that. And Prentice, as also mentioned, took care of his business. Everything, anything he had to do. And as Richard mentioned, last fall, he was telling me, we were coming from a TSU game. He said, man, I'm getting all my things in order, so that my family won't have to worry about doing these things for me. So he took care of his business. And that was another thing I loved about him. And as mentioned, we went to Vegas together, Houston, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Memphis, Titans games, home games, TSU home games, homecoming. We had a great time together, and we were the best of friends. So, if you think about those three things, family, friends, and taking care of business or life, he was rich in family, he was rich in friends, and he was rich in life. So he passed away a rich man. And all of us should think about that and try to be the same way. God bless this man. God bless his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, friends and family. I am Jewel Pillow Walker. I am family. Prentice's nephew, Donnie Bailey, is married to my niece, Sharon Joyce, and they reside in Atlanta. So that's how I am family. It is indeed an honor for me to stand here and before you and just literally deliver a deserving tribute to my buddy, my friend Prentice. Prentice was happy, he was kind-hearted, he had an incredible sense of humor and infectious laugh. He had a gift for making people feel loved. Our paths crossed within the past 2 years, and we would see each other at birthday celebrations for family and funerals. In August 2024, I worked at Hull Jackson School as a substitute teacher. On the first day of school, I pull up and I see Prentice standing in the street with a stop sign, directing traffic, and being trained as a crossing guard. He waved and yelled, "Hey!" with a big smile. The next morning, I was a little late because I had taken my granddaughter to school. I let the window down. I said, "Good morning, Prentice." And he tells me, "You're late. School starts at 7:45. I told him, the principal knows that I will be here by 8 o'clock. So lovingly and joyfully, he would say to me when I pull up, "Good morning, you're so beautiful. Have a great day. I love you." I just tell you, Prentice, he was something else. He would stop me. I was like, "Prentice, you're making me late to get into school." And he would say, "All right, go ahead." So I would only work 4 days a week. But Prentice didn't know my schedule. So 2 days later, I pull up. Prentice blowed the whistle, held up the stop sign. I said, "Good morning, Prentice." He said, "Where were you yesterday? Why you didn't come to school?" So I had to explain my work schedule. So our daily encounter was, "Good morning, have a good day, and I love you." Prentice enjoyed being a crossing guard. He would come early in the morning for arrival, go back home, Then he would come back later in the afternoon for a dismissal. When the school year ended in May of this year, he put all the equipment in the trunk of his car, and he pulled over into the school parking lot. That was something he never really did. He got out of his car and walked over and talked to the principal for a minute, and then he came to talk to me as I got ready to get in my car. Prentice talked about how good God had been and how blessed he was. He said, "You know, Joel, I thank God that I can get up and get dressed, and I can go to work, and I can come back home, and I can go back again and finish the day with a few aches and pains." Prentice lived a good life. He loved his family, and he loved his friends. So on August 5th, when school started, I pulled up to the school and I didn't see him. I had mixed emotions. A week later, I called Creasa, and she shared that he had been sick and he had passed. Prentice was happy in life. So let us celebrate his amazing impact today. I take comfort in knowing one thing: his legacy of love and joy will continue to live on through the memories we all cherish. We remember him, we honor him, and we carry Prentice in our hearts. Rest in peace, Prentice.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Megan Sutts. I'm the assistant principal at Hull Jackson, and I'm also Jewel Walker's cousin. So when I think about Mr. Leonard, I think about someone who took what some might call a simple job and showed us all how important it really is. As our crossing guard, he wasn't just directing traffic. He was protecting our students and our families, making sure every child started and ended their school day safely. He had this way of taking his work seriously, but never himself. If you came through the car rider line, you probably got a joke or a laugh from him. Parents knew he was watching, and if they tried to sneak past the rules, well, he never backed down. Some parents would say, "Dr. Suggs, you better get him," but he just kept us all accountable in his own straightforward way. Some might say his tone was strong when he got on to you, but he was just passionate. Passionate about Hull Jackson, passionate about the student safety. That's what I admired most about Mr. Leonard. He cared enough to problem solve when things got messy, to stand his ground when families got upset, and to always put kids first, especially during the dismissal time. He had my back a lot of the times, and I had his. That kind of loyalty and dedication is rare, and it meant the world to me and to all of us at the school. He enjoyed his job, and in doing it so faithfully, he made a difference every single day. Our mornings and afternoons won't be the same without him. Everyone misses him. It was evident this year on the first day of school just how truly valuable he was to our school. Even the parents who gave him a hard time miss him, asking me every day, "Where's Mr. Leonard? We need his order out here." But I know his presence, his humor, and his unwavering care will stay with us and with every student and family who crossed safely because he was there. I know we'll all feel the absence of Mr. Leonard at Hull Jackson, but I also know his spirit would always be with us. But on a personal note, I really got to know Mr. Leonard these past 2 years that he was at Hull Jackson. And then once he found out that we were slick family, our relationship got stronger. So on those first day he wasn't there, I was like, "Okay, where's Mr. Leonard? All right." Then the second day, Coach Vaughn and I, because we were his girls, we always did dismissal with him. And he made sure that we were always taken care of. So we called him, because we have his number, just in case, because he was out a lot last year due to illness. So we got his number to always check in on him. So we called him, and he answered. And we said, "Mr. Leonard, where you at? We miss you. What's going on?" And he told us that he was in the hospital, but he was getting himself together. He said, don't worry about it. I'm coming back. I'm going to be back. I got you. And I said, okay, well, we miss you and we love you. We waiting on you to come back. And he said, all right. He said, I'll be there. He said, I got it. I'm just getting myself together so I can be strong, but I'll be there. And then Jewel told me a week later that he had passed. So, but I really do truly love Mr. Leonard. And thank y'all for letting us have him for 2 years at Howard Jackson.
See Me Now. I've never heard that song before. And as I listen to it and thinking about Prentice, thinking about our gathering, so powerful. All I can do is say, wow. Before I get started, I want to compliment you, Richard, and your staff. Prentice is handsome. He looks so good. I mean, it's just like he's lying down taking a nap. He looks good. Man, you all did a great job. And I want to compliment you for that. I also want to recognize and acknowledge my fellow clergymen and women that's present here. I won't call your names because I might miss someone, but I see several of my colleagues in the congregation here this afternoon. Those of you who I know, Marilyn and Brother Ackland, I saw Dan Hayes earlier, and there may be others, and of course, hadn't seen Sonny in a good while, and it's so good to see you, man. I tell you, it really is. It's been such a consistency in the tributes that have been made today. Every speaker had something very similar to say about Prentice. And I guess from listening to some of those tributes, if I had to put a title or a label to what I would say, it would be that Prentice made preparations. Prentice prepared for us to come here on this day to celebrate his life and to listening to the song, If You Could See Me Now. Honestly, I am so overwhelmed. There are so many things that I could say. There was not enough space, nor time, nor energy to say all that I could say and all that you could say. So when Prentice, like with you, Sonny, asked me and you, Richard, about 3 years ago, he says, Fred, I want you to do my eulogy, if you would. He really caught me off guard. And I couldn't respond to him immediately. I had to kind of process that through because I didn't know if he was hinting that he was ill, although he looked so very healthy. But eventually, as I thought about it, I says, Prentice, I'll give it my best with God's help. So what I want to say to you today, my friends, is this is a heavy responsibility to stand here today to celebrate the life of such a dear friend. When I was asked to do this, as I said, just kind of trembled. Prentice was a unique guy. I knew it wouldn't be easy because how do you capture the fullness of a life so rich, so unique, so impactful, so very strong? How do you encapsulate all of that in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, all day? But I count it a real privilege and one of the greatest honors of my life. Creasa, when you called the other day And we were talking as if we were planning something down the road initially. And I said, hold it, Creasa. Are you saying that Prentice is no longer with us? She said, yes. I really couldn't believe it because Prentice, the last time I talked with him probably was about 3-4 months ago, maybe or longer. He and I had not seen each other on a regular basis, but when we did see each other, we talked about some very deep and some heavy things. So he never, ever mentioned at all about him failing in his health. But when you called Creasa the other day, and when I talked with Ellen the other day, one of the things that you said, again, consistency, you all had visited him on his last visit, on his last time you would see him alive. And you were there to comfort him and to embrace him and to encourage him and to give him the inspiration and to know that you all loved and cared for him. But what Prentice did, he stopped you. He said, how are you doing? Creasa, you okay? Ellen, you all right? You gonna be all right? So all I'm saying, sisters and brothers, is that Prentice, as it already has been indicated, you put others before yourself. I care about you. You know you're gonna be transitioning because you're on the way home. But he had made his commitment to your health, to your happiness and your peace, as he has done for all of us in so many different and various ways. He's a great guy. I've known Prentice a long time. We grew up together as babies. He lived on 25th. At that time, we lived in our little house on 27th. They would say today a few blocks apart. We would say a few alleys apart. Because we would run across the field. I'd go to Miss Creasa's house. He'd come down to my house. We'd eat, play. We grew up together as children. Went to elementary school together. Ford Green. Went to junior high school together, Washington. Went to high school together, Pearl High. And even beyond that, we kept the relationship going. And some of you, if not all of you, know what I'm talking about. You shared that same experience with Prentice. If it wasn't in school, it was in Vegas. Or at the Super Bowl, or TSU, or the Titans Nissan Stadium. What I'm about to tell you and share with you is something that many of you may not know about Prentice. Has nothing to do with drug addiction, has nothing to do with alcoholism. He wasn't a thief or a criminal. But Prentice had an uphill battle throughout his life. He was dyslexic. Had trouble, difficulty with his reading and his writing. I used to think that Prentice was dumb. I said, in my mind, I never said it to him because Prentice would have knocked the you-know-what out of me if I had. But I used to think that Prentice was slow. I used to think he was dumb, couldn't learn back in the day. Share a little story. Fanny will appreciate this, and Creasa and Ellen will, and maybe some others. But back in the day, Prentice and I, Do Baby, John, sometimes VH, we worked in a grocery store, in a local grocery store not far from where we lived. It was called Gilman Hodge, not Reese's, but Gilman Hodge. And at Gilman Hodge store where we worked, we had a variety of responsibilities that we had to take care of. Sometimes we would deliver groceries riding a bike with a big basket in front of it to our neighboring mothers and fathers. Sometimes we would have to sweep up the floor and keep the shelves clean and neat and orderly. And Fanny, Do Baby would come by. He wouldn't always work with us all day, but he'd come in and out, you know, this kind of thing. But every now and then we'd have to go back in the meat market, the meat department, learn how to chop pork chops and cut up the chicken and all that stuff back there, and sometimes worked in the produce department. But the thing that probably was most critical in the context of us gathering here today, we had to take orders. We had to write down what Miss So-and-so wanted. And we had to spell correctly what so-and-so had ordered, and so forth and so on. And sometimes, if others of us were busy doing other things, Prentice would have to answer the phone and take the order. He had a tremendous mind, though, and great recollection. But he couldn't write down the item and spell it correctly so others could see it. Prentice would sometimes slip away. How do you spell milk? How do you spell chicken? In his head, he had it memorized. He knew exactly what the other party, the customer, wanted to order at the store. But he would sneak around, not sneak, but he was unique about how he was able to manipulate and to navigate through his life. Fred doesn't spell it right. He was a hell of a guy, telling you. So anyway, dyslexia, you need to know what it is. Dyslexia is a neurological problem. It challenges one who is dyslexic how to differentiate correctly between an A, B, and a C, and particularly a B and a D, or an SAW and a DAW, saw, draw, because the words get mixed up and tangled up and upside down and jumbled. Dyslexia can be a challenge. trouble matching the sounds, recognizing words quickly. People with dyslexia see differently when they see something written on the paper. And while his condition of dyslexia made academics difficult, the way Prentice navigated through life and navigated through jobs and navigated through whatever he was doing, you would never know it. He was a hell of a guy. He never allowed dyslexia to define who he was. In fact, it sharpened his resourcefulness. It sharpened his creativity. It sharpened his ability to see the world differently from you and I. So what stood out far more for me than his classroom struggles was his sharp mind, his deep level of creativity, and such wisdom, Bo. He had a way of seeing the world differently, and that perspective made him insightful. It made him intelligent. It made him remarkably astute. He was a hell of a guy and well prepared. How did I find out about his condition? You'll never guess it. About maybe a year or two ago, we had gone to the Pearl High School alumni breakfast gathering. And he reiterated to me, I want you to do my eulogy. I want to prepare for my family so they're not having to do anything. I don't know how we got into this conversation, but we started talking about my family, my children, and my grandchildren. And I had to tell him that every day I have to tutor my youngest grandchild every afternoon. And I said, Prentice, this has been a burden on me because I've seen her suffer. My granddaughter is 10 now, and she has told me that sometimes in school she's embarrassed because she can't read at the level of her peers. I said, Prentice, and I struggle with this, but I'm committed to it. You know, Prentice said, I'm dyslexic, like your granddaughter. But let me tell you what, dyslexia has not and will not define me nor her. She'll be all right. He's a hell of a guy. He embraced me, encouraged me as a grandfather who loved his little 10-year-old grandchild and said, Fred, it's going to be all right. I've had some bad days. I've had days when I had to sneak around and ask you to help me spell. But the Lord made a way. The Lord makes a way out of no way. The Lord can open up doors that no man or woman can shut. And he can shut doors that no man nor no woman can open. He holds the kingdom key. I'm about through. One of the oldest lies ever told is when a preacher gets up and says, "Be here in just a few minutes." But I am about to come to a close. Prentice was remarkably resourceful. He was one of those rare individuals who combined street smarts with genuine wisdom. He could size up a situation quickly, make decisions with clarity, and often provide sound advice right on spot. But beyond his intelligence, he had a loving, gracious heart and spirit. He was approachable and had that gift of making others feel valuable. He made you feel important. It's no wonder he was so well liked by his friends and his peers and by his family. One of the other things that always impressed me about Prentice was his entrepreneurial spirit. While some of us were still figuring out what we wanted to do in our lives, I believe that Prentice was already figuring out or had figured out what he wanted to do. You know, Prentice could sew. You know, he could sew up a torn sleeve. Prentice could cut your hair. Prentice could do a weave. Prentice was a hell of a guy. So he mastered these gifts and these skills. Think about it. It takes precision and it takes patience to alter a particular piece of garment. It takes precision and patience to do a particular head of hair. Prentice could do both. He conquered both levels of those skills, precision and patience. And it was not just a job for him. Prentice knew that the skill set that he had brought people together, sharing experiences, etc. Now, while his talents were many, what truly anchored Prentice was his faith. Prentice believed in Jesus. Prentice believed in God. Prentice believed in the resurrection. That's why the song was so appropriate, my brother. If you could see me now, if you knew where I was, who I was hanging out with, who I had breakfast with this morning, who I'm going to have dinner with tonight, if you could just see me now. It was his faith above anything that I was most impressed. There's a verse that I want to use to kind of equate and parallel the life of Prentice. It's found in 2 Timothy 4, 7 through 8, and it reads as thus: I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, eternal and everlasting dwelling place. It won't crumble. The big bad wolf can't blow it down. That old big old bad orange head man can't fool with me. I could go on that, but I better stay on track because I'll go way off on that one. Let's put Prentice in this story that I'm about to share with you. It's a little boy sitting on the banks of the Mississippi River fishing. An elderly man comes by and sees a little boy with his pole out there. And he says, "Son, how's the fishing? How's the fishing going?" He said, "Oh, it's all right. Hadn't caught nothing, but it's okay." So the man said, "Just keep your pole there. It'll be all right." He started walking away, and the little boy said, "But before you leave, I want to let you know I'm waiting on my daddy, who's the captain of the ship that's going to be rolling down pretty soon." And the man looked at him and said, "You got to be crazy. You ain't got no daddy who owns no ship." It happened to be a little black boy. See, all of a sudden, woo, the horn blowing, woo, coming on close. Started getting closer to the bank. Got close enough to the bank that he let the gangplank down. Little boy dropped his pole, ran up the gangplank, and he said, "Come on in, son." Little boy looked back at the old man and said, "I told you, my daddy owns this ship." And he comes by and picks up his load every now and then. Every now and then, God comes by. God comes by to pick up his boy. That's right. If you could see him now, who he's going to eat with, who he's sleeping with, who he's talking with, God has picked up his boy Prentice. As we say goodbye, let us carry forward his legacy. Let us be reminded to face our own challenges with courage, to use our gifts to serve others, and to hold fast our faith. This is how we honor Prentice's life, and this is how we honor God. Prentice, we're going to miss you, man. But thanks for sharing a few days of joy, fun, and happiness with you, man. It was a great ride. It was a joyful journey. Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life, and today especially for the life of our dear brother and friend, Prentice. We're grateful for the love he gave, the wisdom he shared, and the joy he brought into our lives. Lord, we thank you that even in the face of challenges, he fought the good fight, he finished the race, and he kept the faith. And now, as your word promises, there's laid up for him the crown of righteousness, which you, the righteous judge, have awarded him. So, God, we ask your blessings upon the family and upon all of us as we mourn. Lord, surround us with your peace, with your comfort, with your presence, and remind us that those who die in Christ are never lost, but have eternal and everlasting care and presence of you. So we honor Prentice's memory by carrying forward his love, his courage, and his faith in our own lives. Into your hands, O Lord, we commend his spirit. May he rest now in the joy, peace, and glory of your grace and of your mercy. Let the church say amen.
Ashe. Ashe, yo. Uncle Pete was a hell of a guy. I know he's smiling down as he starts his journey of ancestorhood. Now, we'll have the directors come and guide us through the rest of the events of this procession.
Thank you, sir.